Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this public meeting of June 10th. If you need interpretation, without further ado, dear colleagues, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. Were there any conflicts of interest? None. Now for the adoption of the agenda, moved by Councillor Cormier, seconded by Councillor Leblanc. For the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The agenda is adopted as presented. Item number 7, presentations, inquiries and petitions. 7.1. Inquiries by council members to the Kodiak Regional RCMP. Good evening, Mr. Criswell. Welcome to our meeting. Are there any questions from council members? No. I have something this evening, Your Worship. Good evening, councillors and members of the public. At the last meeting, Inspector Breton presented some statistics. They are now on our website. Are there any other comments or questions? If there are no questions or comments, as always, you are welcome to stay, but we'll understand if you must leave. Thank you. Item 7.2, public hearing respecting bylaw CV1 2019, establishment of controlled access streets within downtown Dieppe. Mr. Frenette. Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. This evening we're presenting before the council in public hearing for this bylaw respecting limited access in the streets in Dieppe. This is for rezoning. This is another type of bylaw, but it's respecting the Planning Act. So we're at phase 2 of the development of downtown now. And I'll show you a bit of the history and the procedures and what we propose for this bylaw. The procedure for this public hearing is the context description of the bylaw, presentations, comments, and objections at the end for the public if we have any questions. On May 13th, we had a resolution fixed by the council. Afterwards, we sent letters to all the neighbors, and a notice was published on the website of the city. There are questions asked by neighbors if the letter had been received, and the next morning or afternoon, we had our first call saying that they received a letter. That's interesting to know that when we send a letter by mail, the next day, people are calling us about it. The turnaround was very quick this time. 3 people called. I spoke with 2 of them. One of my colleagues spoke with another person. People that are touched by this bylaw. 2 calls were positive once we explained the why and the vision, and the other call my phone number was given to the person, but I didn't have the chance. I didn't receive the call, but it was explained to that person the intention of the bylaw. After this public hearing tonight, we'll have to send the bylaw to the Planning Advisory Committee for the recommendations, and the council will make a decision after July 8th. This project was studied with the committee, an internal committee that works for the advancements of projects in downtown, and on this internal committee we had engineering services, parks and leisure, expansion Dieppe, and the office of the clerk. So we had a diverse team at the internal, at the office, that gave us recommendations with studies to go ahead for the downtown. To give you a bit of a context, in 2016, Expansion GM hired WSP Canada Inc. It was presented to Council, who accepted WSP's report. In the actions proposed, there were many, but one of them was to recommend that the entrances, as you can see here, south of Champlain, in the island that we call Gauvin Island, should be limited to avoid a lot of come and go on Champlain, so it would be safer. But with an access east and west of the buildings. I'll show you on the second map. In April 2018, and this is planning and development services that hired a team to give us a guide for the downtown for all public services and accesses like sidewalks, buildings, and they had the same advice as WSP, was to limit access so that it would be safer. So what we're trying to do is not different of other downtowns elsewhere where there is already a built feeling. So we have the downtown Moncton. We don't have entrances for each building in the front. Shediac is the same thing. Sackville is another example as well. We have the same type of concept on Dieppe Boulevard. We have entrances every 200 meters. It's the same type of vision that we have here. It's to make the place more safe and to create a downtown. And our objectives are to eliminate entrances on the street, and we have 4 main points mentioned by WSB and Atelier Urbain is to improve the aesthetics and create an environment that would be safe for people walking on the streets, improve safety and the traffic on Champlain, and to create a density and an adjacent build framework for the downtown. The lots are small, and we don't have an entrance, a driveway to each building. We want to keep this in the back of the buildings. When I said to you the section that we're looking at is between Marché Street, Collège Street, and south of Champlain Street. I have the distances here. The lots are about 360 meters. We had a proposal to cut the lots in half to have access north-south halfway up to Gauvin Island. So we'll have distances of 195 meters or 175 meters on Champlain Street so that we can have 2 sets of streetlights that are safe to bring people here and to let them go to the southern access, and then 1 access north-south. People can come in and out of the public parking lots that we're developing. If you look at this project as such, we bring the people to the lights and we give them an access on the south side, east-west. And when we consulted our lawyers and with the clerk's office, they said, yes, it's a possibility, but we have to give public access to people on Champlain Street. And it's important to note that with this bylaw, it will not be done tomorrow morning. We're not going to cut all the driveways of owners on Champlain, but it will be done gradually. We'll be able to tell people that they will have access north-south, or the 2 that I showed you at the lights, and we'll have to give access to these people by an auxiliary way on the south. So the residences that are there in Champlain right now, we're not going to close the driveways. It'll be done gradually with development. We can see a transformation already in this sector when residential houses will be sold for businesses. That's when we'll close the access to Champlain Street. Then we'll have more traffic in those buildings. There'll be buildings of 3 stories. Right now, they're all residential homes. So right now, the residents will keep their grandfather clause until there's more development done. Otherwise, we'll give them access to the south. Like I said, the next steps are public hearing tonight, recommendations of the advisory committee, and July 8th, council can go ahead with the project. Are there any questions? Are there any questions on this project by members of council? No. We've received some objections, and our manager, city manager, must read them. Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, we've received 2 letters, so we must read these letters.
19, I am very opposed to this bylaw. My understanding is that this bylaw will restrict the use of my property by any purchaser to a 3-story building with no access to Champlain Street. This enormously affects the possibility for me to sell my property. It will be severely restricting what I can do with my investment in this property. I have been living in this house since 2006. I understand why the city wants to have these large buildings where my house currently sits. This will be downtown Dieppe. This bylaw is causing the current property owners to finance the city's dream. No one would be okay with having their hands tied this way with so much money invested. These few owners would be greatly punished in order for Dieppe to gain a downtown in the now distant future. If Dieppe proposed a law that restricts residents to only sell the purchasers who would paint their houses orange, the residents will be up in arms. I agree with having our property zoned to allow large buildings placed near the street. However, I am not okay with forcing us to do the legwork and finding the developers for the city's dream. This is taking our money hostage. Sincerely, Jeremy Milburn. Deuxième correspondance, in reference to bylaw CV1 2019, control access within downtown Dieppe. My name is James Riker, and my company, James Riker & Sons Incorporated, owns the property at 286, 288, 292 and 296 Champlain Street that will be affected by this zoning change. These properties create a parcel of land being 250 feet on Champlain Street and 138 feet deep, backing on the land that the city purchased from NB Housing, with these homes having been removed. Please consider my objection to the proposed zoning change for the following reasons and permit our lands to remain commercial as they were zoned when we purchased them in 1986, 2001, and 2003. 1, we were not fully informed of the effects of what the first zoning change to downtown development would mean to these properties. 2, when changes to rezoning are considered, more time, information, and communication is needed between the city and property owners. Also, notice should be by registered mail, as regular mail is not reliable and does not allow reach property owners in sufficient time. 3, the downtown development plan has limited the sale of our property to a select few developers. Limited access to the property and the 3-story clause has limited the developers who might be interested in purchasing these properties. 4, it has taken many years of work and funds to put together this parcel of land in the core of the city, and zoning changes are affecting our plans. We do believe that the city has a great plan for downtown, but it is unfair to expect the property owners to accept this plan without the proper financial consideration when the plan has made an impact on the use of their properties. 6, perhaps when the city has an opportunity to purchase land in this area, they could create a land bank so as to have full and unquestionable use of such property for development. I would ask the city to reconsider, delay this rezoning change until a better solution is arranged for us as property owners. Yours truly, James F. Riker and Sons Incorporated. Alors, c'est les deux correspondances reçues, Monsieur le maire, à cet effet.
Okay, merci.
This is the correspondence we have received, Your Worship. Are there any members of the public here tonight that wants to speak?
Up to the microphone and identify yourself and, oh yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, so please identify yourself and carry on with your objection or support.
My name is James Rieker, and I'm here with my wife. We own the company and that you just wrote. You read the letter concerning, okay? And we're concerned about the way this zoning has come down. We bought these lands as commercial, okay, with the intention of being an investment for our future. And now the rules have changed twice in the past couple of years, making it, like the letter said, impossible to sell this only to a select few people. So our years of hard work are limited now to what we can do, and also it is also, I would think, driving the price down or the value of our land because we don't have as many opportunities to sell it. This puts a handicap to running our business, our little business. We just can't sell right now until somebody comes along and wants to build a 3-story building. So people's lives change, okay? You get older, or you want to retire, you maybe have health issues and you want to sell, but there's just no market for your land today. So, and I'm all for helping the city develop the land and make it into the nice place it is. I invested here 33 years ago, not because I thought it was a bad deal. I thought it was a good deal to have land in the core of the city, and hopefully someday that land would go up in value and would be part of our retirement fund. So all I ask you to do is consider, if you want to make the rules and have it your way, get financially involved. Then there's no dispute, okay? You really should not expect the taxpayer to wait until the opportunity is right for council and city to have their way when maybe the landowner who's paid those taxes all the years doesn't get much say in this, okay? You know, those little properties that I have, with the old houses. I can't improve them anymore because you can't charge more for rent. Can't tear them down, and then if I do, I'll have no income whatsoever. And we currently have about $7,500 a year for property taxes on that piece of land. So, it does run into money. I wish you'd just give us some more consideration. I'm all for downtown. I love Dieppe, and I've proved that by buying here. Not just one time, but 3 times. I've had 4 properties in Dieppe over my lifetime, and I frequent Dieppe often, and I'd like to be part of this city and drive down the road and someday see a nice building on the land that I own. But you like to do it in a timely fashion. Think it over, okay? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Sure.
I completely agree with Jim. Can I get a quick clarification? Are we currently zoned for a 3-story building?
Yes.
Sorry, Jeremy Milburn, I was the other.
Okay, you're, okay. Yes, you are, currently.
I only, when I received this other letter, I actually gave Jim a call because these letters have no information in there how it affects our properties. Like you said about restricted access, the last letter said about downtown. It didn't have any mention about being restricted to selling to a 3-story building. So in my letter, that's why I was on the understanding that was part of this bylaw. I didn't realize I was already currently zoned to only sell to somebody who's going to develop a 3-story building. So I'm already kind of behind the 8 ball there on that. But these letters don't have any information. I left a message to Mark I believe on Thursday when I actually got through this letter and realized that I was affected, but didn't know how I was affected. But the same thing, I have that property, I've been there since 2006. And at some point I've realized, I'm in a prime location here for business. And when it was zoned to downtown, when I first saw that it was zoned for business, it was, okay, well, that's probably good for my property, but not with the mention that I'm now isolated to sell to somebody to put up a 3-story building, which obviously couldn't be done on my single lot by itself. And now with the public access, all this stuff is happening with our property. I'm not sure if I had to step away from that law at any time in the near future, I don't know what I would do. And the same thing, Jim has a few more properties than me, but there's other neighbors on that strip that have single housing. It'd be perfect if we got what we wanted for our property, if the city purchased our strip of property and do with it as you wish, and we could move on if we get a fair value for our property. But to restrict us to find purchasers that are going to follow all these regulations, it seems like my investment is definitely held hostage.
Okay. I think we understand the situation. As far as what it was zoned as before, I don't think there's a lot of changes. Monsieur Frenette, maybe you can answer that question with regards to the current zoning versus prior zoning.
Yeah, so the prior, the minimum height was 2-story high, but since then there was an amendment based on the recommendation of WSP, and it was then that the council decided to go 3-story as it was recommended in WSP report. But for the discussion tonight, basically when we talk with developer, because those lots are so small, they need to go more than 2-story high. They need to go 3, 4, or even 5-story high. They cannot make any money with only 2-story high buildings. So for you guys, it's I think it's important to know that, because there's no for them there's no money if they only go 2-story high. If you can see the last building that were built, except the exist one, the hotel, 250 Champlain, 50 Rue du Marché, they were all 3-story high, and there was a reason for that. And there was a comment that the city should work with you guys or the developer, well, they have some incentive in the downtown that help them doing more density. So that help the density in the downtown because there's some incentive when a new developer come for building some new building. And as for tonight, it's not a question about a rezoning, zone change. It's really for the restricted, to restrict the entrance out from Champlain Street. So I don't know if it's answered a little bit about your concern, but like I said, with all the people that we deal with, they all need to go more than 2-story high anyway, so.
Question de la part des membres du Conseil?
Are there any questions from members of council? The next step a meeting with the committee, the Planning Advisory Committee, 19th of June.
As part of the process, there's a public meeting with
The PAC, it's the Planning Advisory Committee.
Advisory Committee for the city, which is a group of Dieppe citizens. And that's being held Wednesday of next week, the 19th, here at City Hall. So I would encourage you to show up there and express your, raise your concerns, because they are responsible for responding to the analysis of the projects and the changes, and make recommendations to council. That's basically their responsibility.
Yeah. So it's just an.
When is the vision identified, Andrea? When is this?
Can you step up to the microphone because of translation?
I just want to know when this vision is going to take place. Like when, in your idea, when is that restricted access going to take place? What you have a goal? What is the date is going to happen no matter what?
I guess it's hard for us to say exactly when the vision will be. It's depending on investment, and it's also depending on investment from the city for the Champlain Street also, if there's some, how you say that? Champlain, c'est qu'on la retravaille. New construction being done on Champlain Street, at that time, we might consider having the curb and all that, prepare the site. But as for saying a date, it might take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Hopefully, it won't take that long. I think we have some momentum right now in the downtown, so it's going to be, I predict mid-range.
Just maybe clarification, if I may. If council approve these changes, so regulation will be in place as after that. So new development will have to consider these restrictions. So just to be clear, if council decides on this in July, and then we need to have 2 meetings to approve the new bylaw, then it will be in place, I would say, in August. So new development projects will have to conform to these regulations.
Okay, so let's say that this all takes place in 2 years, and I still live there. No one has bought my lot. I can't get out. I now have to go through my backyard and get out through a parking lot and this way.
Your house will keep access to Champlain Street until you decide to sell for development. So your
Okay, so
house
if they
will
start
keep
to
that
do
entrance
curb
on
work
Champlain
to
Street.
prep for this, you're not going to curb off my driveway.
No, it's just new projects.
Okay.
Okay? Welcome.
Monsieur le conseiller Godette.
Councillor Godette.
I think I understand correctly is that as long as you're in those buildings and they're not being torn down, you will always have that access to Champlain.
Yes, that's a
It's
crime.
only when the development takes place. Let's say somebody buys 3 of your properties and wants to develop something, then at that time, the access for that piece of property will be in the back. But until then, you'll have free access to Champlain.
To be clear, Mr. Mayor, again, if I may.
Yeah.
It can also be a project on one piece of land only. It needs to be 3-story high, and access to Champlain Street will not be available anymore for this new project. So it doesn't need to be 3 or 2 lots. New projects. Now you will be keeping your grandfather clause on your access to Champlain.
And it's hard to define when, when is the marketplace going to be ready? Who knows, right? We started developing downtown and dreaming of a downtown in 2002, roughly, 2001, 2002. And you see where we are today, 15, 17, 18 years later. So when is the market going to be ready? Who knows? So it's hard to, certainly from a regulatory point of view, yeah, by August, the regulations will be in place probably, if it's all accepted and recommended by the PAC, the PAC. But when is actual buying going to take place or development going to take place? Your guess is as good as mine. Quelqu'un d'autre? Anyone else? Step right up.
I don't want to occupy too much of this.
No, that's okay. Hey, that's why we're here. There's nothing to look forward to tonight other than a basketball game.
That's all.
Just thought I'd mention it.
I'm of the understanding that the new developers are going to receive an incentive because of parking underground and so on, and I have no clue what.
And the density aspect of it,
Yeah,
yes, that's been in place for some time.
So the new developers you're going to provide them with some incentive, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So how about passing that along? Give us a little incentive too, okay? To hold on and wait for you till the time is right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a tax break or something that would help us with, I know that it's a wait and see game. I got pretty good years in right now, okay? But it would be nice to know that because we're in this situation that we're in, you want to change the zoning. We are not in favor of it, and our access and so on, that we also share in that incentive some way. Maybe there's something you people could work out to make it a little easier for the people who hung on to that land and who preserved that land so that you can do something with it today. My thoughts.
Thank you very much. Good suggestions. We'll certainly pass it on to our economic development people and our finance people. Thank you. Anybody else? 3, 2, 1. OK, merci. Alors,
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Next item. Questions from the public.
so we've already done some of that. Alors, quelqu'un d'autre?
Anybody else? Then we shall continue with the adoption of the minutes of the last meeting of council on May 27th. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Leblanc, that we adopt the minutes of May 27th. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, may. Adopted, carried as presented. Item number 10. Culture, Leisure and Community Life, Mr. Melanson. Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. Here we have ratification of directives adopted at a closed meeting We're one of the municipalities welcoming Congrès Mondial Acadien this year in August. So we've had to get directives for planning on the organizing committee of the Congress. Firstly, we have a request for exemption. Council, the Congress wanted to play loud music until 3 o'clock in the morning. So we have to put that before the public. And next is temporary street closure to have access on August 15th to the stage site. So we will have a lot of streets closed for part of the evening, and other streets will be closed for the Tetama. And to be clear, on June 17th, next Monday, the organizers will be here for a policy and strategic meeting to give a presentation to the public. It'll be on our website too, so people can get more details. So we have an internal team that worked really hard with the organizing committee to make sure everything is in place and safe. And we'll have streets to go around, and anybody that lives within this sector will be informed of all the detours necessary, and the ones that are directly on these streets will have access to their houses with a control card that we'll give them. So next Monday night you can get all the details. But I assure public everything is planned for our national August 15th day. And we're hoping to get 20 to 25,000 people, so we have to plan for this event. So safety is first, and we have everything in place to welcome everybody. Thank you for the reading of the resolution. Councillor Leboutier. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council ratified the directives adopted at closed meetings of Council concerning the following topics. 1. Request for exemption. Bylaw S9 prohibiting excessive noises, Congrès Mondial Acadien. 2. Temporary street closure, Congrès Mondial Acadien. I so move. Moved by Councillor Leboutier, seconded by Councillor Brito. For the question. Mr. Godette, with respect to the letter that will be sent to people that are living within this sector, one thing that happens often is that they have visitors as well, friends, family to visit. It must be included in that letter that if they have visitors, then the car must be within the zone before the street closures, because we don't have to give permits to everybody. So I would suggest to put that in the letter. If they have visitors, that they should be there before the street closures. Yes, noted. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Godette. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, find it nay. Carried as presented. 10.1.2 Community Grant. Yes, we received in the fall for a contribution for Friends of the Moncton Hospital for their campaign. Council said we would consider this request for our next budget. For this to have the figures in their financing campaign, they want a firm commitment, so we have to do it by resolution. It's a contribution of $10,000 annually for 5 years for a total of $50,000 that would start in 2020 with a campaign, with the fundraising campaign of Friends of Moncton Hospital Foundation. For the reading of the resolution, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. The council authorized an annual contribution of $10,000 to the Extraordinary Care fundraising campaign of the Friends of the Moncton Hospital Foundation for a period of 5 years starting in 2020, and also authorized this expenditure be defrayed from account number 1-2-20-28-2310, General Operating Budget, Grants to Organizations. I so move. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Godet. Further question? Councillor Cormier. Do we give something to Charles Dumas Hospital? Yes, I think we're in a third year, 5-year, for the finance campaign as well. Thank you. No other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried. 10.2.1, tender award for Amiro-Melanson intersection improvement and Champlain Street crosswalk. With our budgetary process, we went to RFP. We had 4 proposals, so it's recommended to give it to Modern Construction 1983 in the amount of $709,000, $430 for street lights at Amiro and Melanson Street, and also for the crosswalk on Champlain. We're at the Moncton Flight College as well. EXP Services Engineering asked for $80,000, and for this project we had reverse funds for this project. So that's the recommendation tonight. For the reading of the resolution, Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. That council award the contract for the project entitled Amiro-Melanson Intersection Improvement and Champlain Street Crosswalk 2019 to the lowest bidder, being Modern Construction 1983 Limited, at the revised cost of $709,430 plus HST, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3335587638, General Capital Budget, Traffic Lights, Amiro-Melanson and Crosswalk, Champlain. That council authorized the EXP Services Inc. to undertake the engineering services for the project entitled Amiro-Melanson Intersection Improvement at Champlain Street Crosswalks 2019 at the cost of $80,000 plus HST, and further authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3335587638, General Capital Budget, Traffic Lights, Amiro-Melanson and Crosswalk, Champlain. That council authorized a budget transfer in the amount of $155,000 from account number 3335587647, General Capital Budget, Alain Gillette, Acadie Intersection, to account number 3335587638, General Capital Budget, Traffic Lights, Amiro-Melanson and Crosswalks, Champlain. I so move. Moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Leblanc. For the question, Mr. Godet, I have a question relating to the traffic lights on Melanson and Amiro. Will there be lights with the priority for left turning? Different from what's on Champlain and Notre-Dame right now? In other words, when the light changes, is there a left turning arrow? Mrs. Spencer. I'll check on that, but I think it's yes, that we'll give priority to left-hand turning. Thank you. So we'll wait for an answer. Councillor Leblanc. Thank you, Your Worship. When we talked about traffic lights on Amiro Street, there are 2 sections, Melanson and Fox Creek, Where are we in Fox Creek? So I see we were counting the cars. So where are we at there? Mrs. Spencer, thank you. For Fox Creek Amiro intersection is a bit complicated because of Marguerite Street complicates things. So if we put street lights there, it would ruin services on Amiro. It's a problem. That's why we wanted to go ahead with Amiro Melançon, because people will have an option, especially during rush hour, because it's hard to turn left on Amiro from Fox Creek. At least they'll be able to come down Melançon Street and turn left with these lights. We don't have a budget for lights at Fox Creek, but we'll settle that in the future. But now there are no street lights planned for that now. In 35 years, we'll have an intersection identified, and in 2 years, it'll be coming to budgetary meetings. No other question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. The next item, 10.2.2, engineering services, Gauvin Block. Mr. Melançon, we talked a little while ago at the public hearing, so for the plan in downtown, building plan, here, we're asking us to go ahead with EXP Services, Inc. for engineering services, and to identify the alleys north and south for potential development projects in the future. So we're trying to situate these to be able to develop around them. So this is for the preliminary plans. It's recommended at $60,000. Isn't that putting the cart before the horse? In that it hasn't yet gone to the advisory committee. So I would suggest that we table this item for the moment, or we could accept it if we go ahead conditionally. Ms. Spencer? Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to add, we don't have, doesn't bind us to anything. A few developers want us to look at it closely, where we would place these alleys, but we're not yet in the construction phase. We'll come back for approval for that. Thank you. For the reading of the resolution, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council authorized EXP Services Inc. to undertake engineering services for the project entitled Downtown Gauvin Block, Streets and Parking Lots at the cost of $60,000 plus HST, and further authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3335587645, General Capital Budget, Downtown Gauvin Block. I so move. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Godet. For the question. No other questions? Councillor Boutillier. It was in the main vein on the new part of Îlot Gauvin, close to the roundabout. Why are we making plans for this when we have no idea what the developers are going to do? We have no idea. We're not ready to spend money on something that we'll have to redo afterwards. The north-south, yes, we have to go ahead, but planning a parking lot and the streets that will be coming out on the side when we don't know what the developers want, what their decisions will be, perhaps we could react at that point. Thank you, Your Worship. You're right, Councillor Leboutillier. Like east, south, we'll have to see where we're going to place the streets. We're not going to do anything in the middle. But even if we don't do it right now, with the access or the driveways on Champlain, we have to do it now anyway for people to know how people are going to access public parking. We'll still need these exits and entrances. Thank you. Anybody else? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, 9 may. Carried. 10.3.1. Set dates, public presentation and hearing. Here we have to set a date for a presentation, public hearing, for an amendment to our municipal plan, Z9, and zoning bylaws, Z10. There are two elements here. We have to give recommendations, and we need amendments. And with cannabis recommended by the department, we must installations to produce cannabis. So we have a presentation that will be done on July 8th here at City Hall at 6 p.m. And we have a recommendation as well from the Planning Committee. So this public hearing will be set for July 8th. Thank you for the reading of the resolution. Councillor Comey. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council schedule a public presentation on July 8th, 2019 at 6 p.m. at the Dieppe City Hall to present proposed changes to the municipal plan Bylaw Z9 2017 at a public hearing on August 12, 2019 at 6 p.m. at the Dieppe City Hall to hear objections on the proposed changes to zoning bylaw Z10 2017. That council requests the written views of the Planning Advisory Committee and extend the deadline pursuant to Section 110, brackets 3 of the Community Planning Act to September 9th, 2019. I so move. Moved by Councillor Cormier, seconded by Councillor Leblanc. For the question, no questions. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. Now, item 11.1, bylaw A13, respecting the reduction of single-use plastic bags in the city of Dieppe. We don't have to talk about it in any length right now. So we go to first reading by title, first and second reading by title only. Councillor Leblanc. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw A13, bylaw respecting the reduction of single-use plastic bags in the city of Dieppe. I so move first reading by title only. Moved by Councillor Leblanc, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. Further question? Councillor Leboutillier. I wanted clarification. Well, we had an agreement with the three agreements. Do we have the same bylaws? Are they similar? Yes. Since a few months now, we're working with the other two municipalities. We're going to work together. We need a similar approach because it impacts our neighbors when we make a change. City of Moncton had first and second reading last week. Tonight, Dieppe and Riverview are doing the same thing. And when it's adopted at the next reading, at the next meeting, we give 1 year to all businesses to have plastic bags to go through them. So this bylaw will be enforced on July 1st, 2020. So this is for the 3 communities. And then the bylaws are all similar. Thank you. No other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Bylaw A13 is accepted by first reading. Now we go through second reading by title only. Councillor LeBlanc. Bylaw A13, bylaw respecting the reduction of single-use plastic bags in the city of Dieppe. I so move. And second reading by title only. Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. For the question? None. All those in favor of the resolution respecting bylaw A13, second reading by title, signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Bylaw A13 is accepted by a second reading. 12, notices of motion, none. Nobody wants to get into this boat or in a galley, could be one or the other. Inquiries and announcements by members of council, number 13. So we shall start with Councillor Godet. I would like some information. A citizen called me preoccupied, concerned by Amiro Street, where it starts and where Acadie ends. He says a lot of people that he talks to are a little bit insecure on this intersection. There's a curb, and when I'm on that street, I can see there are cars that are close to one another. I was wondering why we didn't put some kind of gate. Like on Wheeler, there's a little gate or to protect one car hitting the other. He said there's already been a death. Or there could be a fence. Have we considered that? I think standards have changed since the last construction. Your Worship, I don't know if we had this discussion, if it was recommended by our consultants. The street has a 60 kilometer an hour speed limit, but people drive faster. So if they drive faster, it could be more dangerous. And it was improved by Department of Transportation and Infrastructure because it's a designated highway, and they didn't make that recommendation to have a fence or anything. And the other thing, if you build a fence, it could increase the severity of accidents because you would hit into it. It could be a protection against the cars coming toward you, but it's a physical barrier, and that could be dangerous. I already have the answer. Thank you. That person finds it concerning, but you're right. Cars do drive quickly around this bend. My last point, on this point, if you allow me, don't you install guards? We've had recommendations because people spoke to us about the same problem. We asked the consultants to look to see if there was anything they could do. I think we're going to soften the hill and push back some of the posts, so it would eliminate obstacles if somebody loses control. We didn't want the guards because that was a physical obstacle, but we want to soften the little hill and remove posts well, we have to ensure people don't drive too fast. We'll have to ask RCMP to control that. But it is problematic. It was a problem for this man. My last point, this is Father's Day, so I want to wish all fathers a happy day. Most of them will be golfing or elsewhere. I think that's what they do nowadays. So happy Father's Day, everybody. Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc, I have nothing to add this evening. Councillor Comey, as my colleague, I have nothing, thank you. Councillor Brideau, I think it's a fever. I have nothing as well. Councillor Leboutier, I'm going to change this tendency. But I wish you all a happy Father's Day. They all deserve it. Tranquille Street. I had 2 calls recently. People are speeding on Tranquille Street. People that live there say that as if you're taking Fox Creek Road to make a detour and come back this way rather than take Boulevard Dieppe all the way. That could be checked. Could we check the speed on this street? It's increased in the past 6 months. Maybe we could move our speed posters. Thank you. That's it. Councillor Thibodeau, thank you, Your Worship. I have one thing. I have a question that I already asked. I want to come back to it. It's about the sales bags. If we could prohibit them, little publicity bags that are distributed, and some people don't want them. I've received complaints about that. And the last time I mentioned it, it was noted that we could try to do something about it. We had contacts with Brunswick News on these blue bags. We have to have discussions with them. We haven't had the chance to meet them yet. There's been a lot of changes in that organization. We're going to try to work on that file. It's possible to prohibit them. Perhaps we could put them in baskets near businesses. We've received an audit stating that they checked all the streets in Dieppe, and some streets are to improve. I mentioned that it's very difficult to get yourself off this registration list for this service. We're waiting for answers. They're saying they're working on it. It's not a closed file. We're still working on it with these people. Thank you. Is that it? I really have nothing to add, so have a good evening, everybody. And have a good time golfing, and go Raptors go.